Hello, Bravo bosses. This is the Bravo Investigator Podcast. I'm your host, Dana. And today on our TLC Tuesday, we are talking about 90 Day Fiance Before the 90 Days, Season 8, Episode 5, entitled The Nearest Exit May Be Behind You. Happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope you've had a great start to your week so far. I'm sorry that I'm recording this so late in the day. I just really had to get some stuff done for Ryan Bailey. We're doing a special little traders related project together, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be really exciting. And I also needed a nap because I've just been feeling really stressed lately. I've had a lot of stuff on my plate. It's funny. I am unemployed yet. I feel so incredibly busy, but that's probably because I am literally podcasting every single day, plus doing a myriad of other things. So happy to see you guys on this Tuesday, or not see you guys because this is audio. Isn't it funny how I'm always apologizing for something in every episode? I think that is like the Canadian in me, eh? Right? And I'm always like, sorry, this is so late. Sorry, it's not video. Sorry. But it is 90 Day Fiance Day. One of my favorite days of the week. This was a pretty good episode. In some ways, it was like a filler episode with some of the couples. I feel like when there's a lot of travel, or when there's pieces that are like, I don't know, I guess showing the sights, or they're sort of like enjoying themselves. It's just takes up a lot more time, but it's not really giving us a lot of story. And it's great for them, and they're spending time together and enjoying their time together. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily give a lot more story. So I feel like there was a lot of that this episode. But we also, move some stuff along. So happy Tuesday again, you guys, and I hope things are going well for you. Yesterday I had a job interview and it went really well, I think. So I'm still just gonna keep it on the down low and try not to get too excited, because I know it might sort of take a while. Even if this does miraculously work out, it's going to be a while before I hear anything. So I am just going to not get too excited, but get a little bit excited. And then I have another interview tomorrow that's sort of like an introductory interview. And then, I just got a text actually about some like part-time contract work. So okay, 2026, maybe it's getting a little bit better, okay? Like maybe things are going to work out. It's already January 6th and things are feeling a little more positive. So things are going better on my end. I hope that any of you that were struggling to get through the holidays, or who were struggling with 2025, I hope you've had a great 2026 for just this first week that we've had, because like I'm saying, it can pick up and turn around just that quickly. All right, well, let's get into our episode. Super jazzed about this one. Let's start with our favorite couple, Sheena and Forrest. So we are there. We are overseas. We're in the Philippines. And we have this scene of Sheena and Forrest going underwear shopping together. He's been there a couple of days. He's really enjoying being there with her, spending time with her, holding her hand. But he's having trouble finding clothing in the Philippines because he's like a bigger guy. And not because he's like overweight, because I don't think he necessarily is, but he's very tall, right? He's over 6 feet. I think he's 6'2", and it's not common for people there to be over 6 feet. Sheena said that Forrest is the tallest guy she's ever seen. It's kind of funny for your boyfriend to be the tallest guy you've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, there is definitely a disparity in height in this couple. She's very teensy tiny. He says that he regrets not bringing more t-shirts along on this trip. Because remember at the beginning, he was saying that he wasn't going to pack much because he and Sheena were going to go clothing shopping together. He wanted like a whole new wardrobe or something. But yeah, I guess that's really not working out because they don't really have his size there. So I totally get that. But he's like, I found some banana hammocks, which I'm looking forward to trying on later, which, go Forrest, right? No matter how much Forrest separates himself from his mom, he's always going to have a piece of her, right? And like he has spent so much time with her in his life that even when he's like sort of put off by her being crass, he's still crass, right? Or I don't know what other word to use. I feel like that's such a silly word, but like he still has his moments, right? Which I love, but he does do it a lot more tastefully than she does, obviously. So Forrest is really enjoying this alone time with Sheena because so far they've been with his mom and Dev the whole time. Forrest asks Sheena how she feels about his mom confronting her the night before about giving money to her parents. And Sheena just agreed to confront her parents about this issue with Forrest. She feels like Forrest will, be the backbone, but he feels like it's sort of time for her to move on and to be independent. And he's encouraging her to do that, which in some vein I appreciate, but I guess I need more information because if he was anyone else, because we love Forrest, right? He's a sweetie. Hang on, I need some water. I feel like super dry mouth. We love Forrest. He's a sweetie, but if he was anyone else, we'd consider this to be very controlling to say, okay, you need to be independent from them. You need to get away from them. Like, what is the deal with them, right? Like, I feel like we need, just more information there. So Sheena tells Forrest to tell her parents that, he's very sincere about her. He really wants to be with her. They're working on bringing her to the US because in the Philippines, it's really important for the parents to give approval on who you're marrying. So it would just be easier for her all around if Forrest and her parents could get along. And then Forrest asked why she didn't explain that beforehand because he didn't know that. He didn't know that he needed her parents' approval because he feels like they've been mistreating Sheena and I'm also taking them away. So I don't feel like I should have to get their approval. But we don't ever really get answers from Sheena, right? So Sheena feels like Forrest should meet her parents before Molly and Dev. And Forrest does agree with that, but he correctly assumes that Molly will not take this well. So Molly, in her own confessional, where she looks very cute, by the way, she says that she appreciates that Sheena's doing the most to show them like the best parts of her country. And that's what I was talking about when I say like, we get a lot of, them doing activities and doing things overseas that we maybe normally wouldn't see, but they still don't know why she lied. And Molly feels like there's more to this story. Here's the thing about Molly. I think she's very overprotective of Forrest, right? I think that's obvious. But I do want to know how much of that is tied into his autism because he's obviously very high functioning. And I sometimes the way she speaks to him, I'm curious if it's part of her like almost training in terms of being a parent of an autistic child because I don't know if you guys have ever watched that show Parenthood, but there was a kid on that show who was on the spectrum and the parenting was different. They would explain things like the parents would explain things to their child on the spectrum in a different way than they would explain things to their other children. And I sort of noticed that here in Molly, and I'm wondering if that's what this is. That being said, he's still a full grown ass adult, right? And he does say that. He does try to confront her with that. Like he does tell his mom, like, they would like it if he would meet Sheena's parents first and then she meets Sheena's parents after Forrest. Molly tells the camera that she's worried that Sheena's parents can manipulate him just like Sheena did, so she needs to be there. But like, again, I don't think so, right? Like first of all, any situation like that would be difficult regardless, because let's say you're meeting your in-laws or whatever, and you already know that they have like this secret hatred towards you, and you're taking their kid away from them, there is going to be strife and there is going to be issues. And there isn't any way you're going to get away from that conversation unscathed, especially when you want them to like you, right? You want them to give their approval. So I don't think that Molly being there will necessarily change that. It's going to be a difficult conversation regardless. And just let him be an adult and have it, right? Like, what's the worst? So Molly sort of tries to negotiate by saying that, like, okay, just let us come and I won't like come in, but just let us say our greetings and we'll just sort of like be there. And Forrest says, like, in reality, Mom, you're like a very hardcore person and you just need to be able to trust me and Sheena in our judgment. And Molly's like, I don't trust either of you. And she tries to explain to Sheena that her parents will say the same things that they always do, that it's like a cultural thing. So how in one day is she going to be able to stand up to them? And Sheena like looks really, sort of stoic in this moment, but also very strong. And she looks at Molly and she's like, my family aren't bad people. And Molly sort of looks stunned because she says, like, well then Sheena says, it was probably a misunderstanding, and she's talking about, I guess, like the whole thing with her parents, and Molly's like, oh, okay, the story changes again. Okay. First you told me you were pressured and scared of your family. And the thing is, like, it can be both, right? It doesn't mean that her family are bad people. We have seen this many a time, right? And it's confusing to us being like from a different part of the world where we don't have that sort of same expectation, but I've seen it in other shows, like in other 90 Day Fiance shows. Like this was super prevalent in oh my God, what was their names? Asuelu and Kalani or Kalini. It's confusing because there was two sisters. One of them was married to Asuelu. They were from Samoa, and Asuelu's parents had like that expectation. So I'm trying to remember the whole situation. So please don't like call me out on this, guys, because I'm doing my best to remember. But Asuelu and Kalani or Kalini went to the US. She was pregnant. She didn't have a job, I don't think. He didn't have a job. They had to live with her parents. And yes, they're on TLC, but my understanding is they do not make a lot of money. And the person who doesn't have the green card, like the person who's coming from overseas, doesn't get paid. I believe that's how it works. And that the other party is supposed to just like share it with them. But regardless, we'd see these insane scenes of Asuelu's mother, like sort of losing her fucking mind, and his sister being like, give us money, give us things. And Kalini or Kalani would be like, no, like I don't even have enough money for my children. Do you not want us to like feed our children and care for our children? And she was like, no. And I know that probably makes her seem like a bad person. And listen, maybe she is, right? But I'm just giving it as an example because we've seen it sort of time and time again. But regardless, like even if her parent, this could just be a very contentious, complicated situation, anyways. I mean, we saw last episode where, yes, she didn't give us an answer in terms of why she's lying about giving the money to her parents. But the way she got like really upset about it, was blubbering about it, was kind of going back and forth, made me feel like she was sort of struggling in it because she said, like, they try to convince me I'm bad and they say bad things to me. But at her core, she probably really loves them because of her family. And we've all struggled, not all of us, okay? But there's many of us that have struggled in our relationships with our parents like that, where we love them because we have to, but then they do bad things to us and it's confusing. So try to think of it that way. It doesn't necessarily mean they're physically beating her up and then it's sort of like black and white. But even if they were, let's say they were, there is a part of her that maybe would still love them and want a relationship with them. And there's a psychology behind that. So I think it's not as black and white as Molly keeps trying to make this seem. And I sort of want to give Sheena the benefit of the doubt because she seems like, first of all, such a cutie patootie. Second of all, just like a sweet, innocent person. And I really don't think it's this huge conspiracy that Molly tries to make it seem. So all of that to say, in this Forrest and Molly confessional, because they get one together, Forrest says that you can't force someone to hate their family. And, he makes a very good point there. And Molly says, it's the lying I can't get past, though. And okay, I'll give her that. But like, hang on, okay? Like, we're only 5 episodes in, Molly. Like, give us a minute. So Molly says that she's worried that Forrest will say and do anything to keep Sheena's love, and then they'll just find out it's all a con. And Forrest just gets really upset because he's just like, this is exactly why I don't want you to meet Sheena's parents first. Look at the fact that you've like sort of freaked out today. And this is why we need that extra day. And then Molly defends her blowups, okay? She tells the camera that she only blows up to protect him. What does that even mean? That's almost saying like, I only hit you because I love you. Like that's completely ridiculous. Okay, I need a swig of water. But I'm just really impressed with Forrest's backbone, quite frankly. He's very stern and he's very correct. It looks like we're gonna get some more information either in the next episode or coming forward on why Forrest hasn't saved any money to date and why he doesn't have a job. And Sheena sort of calls him on that because, yeah, it is confusing. And we talked about this a few weeks back with Amy Archer from Little Miss Recap. We talked about the fact that this money that Sheena gave to her parents time and time again was money that she was supposed to be saving to come to the US. But what's he been doing, right? I assumed that, or not assumed, but we did hear in one episode that he's been saving this whole time for the plane ticket because they've been together for 7 years. So I'm like, oh, has he been saving for 7 years for the plane ticket? But also, why doesn't he have a job? And what about the other things they could be saving for? Because it's going to be very expensive to go through the K1 process, right? So why does she have to be doing it all? So, he's definitely not off the hook here. He's definitely not perfect, and we're going to need some more information. But I think, oh my God, I just really wish he hadn't have brought Molly because I really think they could have figured this all out on their own. And I think it's just making it worse. It really is. Okay, let's move on to Ziad and Emma. So Emma, we get the scene of her walking in the market in Morocco looking for hair oil. And it made me question, do wigs need hair oil? And this is a serious question. If they do, then tell me. But I was just like, wouldn't that ruin it? And does it matter, right? Does it matter the type of wig, like a synthetic wig, or the type of wigs that Rick does, right? I still wish that Emma and Rick would meet, which they obviously will at the whatever they call this show, the reunion or the after special. I forget what they call this for this show. But because literally they both live in LA, they both like wigs, and they're both sort of vapid. So I could see them ending up together as being sort of like offsets from the 90-day world. That would be so funny. So yeah, very curious if wigs need hair oil. And then like you'll see a lot of her the top part of her hair during this episode, like she has her head down quite a bit, and you see like the part of her hair, like her middle part, like where the hair parts, it's yellow because it's a wig, right? So I don't know, it's just freaking me out a bit because it's almost like highlighter yellow, and it's weird. But we do see them doing this cute like cooking class together, Ziad and Emma. And they do this confessional together where they sort of talk about their cooking expectations, I guess, in a relationship or in marriage. And Ziad's like, well, like you need to learn to cook breakfast. And she's like, I don't eat breakfast. He's like, well, how do you live? And she's like, I just drink coffee and, go. And he's like, okay, what about lunch? She's like, I'll order you lunch. And like this conversation is sort of the first time you see a spark between them, but it's funny because they're being like cute back and forth with each other. So Ziad said that his parents know about her, which she's happy about because for a while his family didn't know about her, but he skirts around her being able to meet them while she's there, and she's not happy about that. He's basically like, they're busy, they have their own lives, they're not going to have time. She has literally found a way to make this experience as negative as possible. Like, I understand those underlying feelings that you just have as a person, like that intuition of like, this person isn't into me, they're being really distant, I don't know how they feel about me. But even in those good moments, she'll find like a negative piece of it. Like, okay, I'm happy your parents know about me, but not this part. Or I'm happy about, I don't know. She just is constantly finding a way to ask him a lot of questions about if he's cheating on her. And he hasn't really, well, let's go into her evidence. So she says that before she got to Morocco, they got in a fight because he was following a lot of girls online. So Emma downloaded this extension on her laptop, she said. I'm very curious what this is. And she said that it shows you who and when and like in what order somebody adds people to social media. And she checked it this morning and he was still adding girls. So she feels like he cheated on her, or like questions whether he even wants or she questions whether he even wants the relationship. And it's just like, okay, then how can you not like just ask him immediately? Okay. If you feel like he's cheating on you, or you feel like he doesn't want to be with you, you can just really sit around all day and do this, right? It just feels very weird to me because she's very even-tempered. She's having a good time with him. If you really feel like this, you'd be a lot more mad. So after the cooking class, they sit down to eat, and Emma tells the camera that she's still so unsure about like what Ziad was doing behind her back. So she stalked him a little, which is, she's like, I don't stalk, I investigate. And that's like what I always say about myself too. But I also use the word stalk, which I think throws people off because, yeah, it sounds scary, right? It sounds like not good, but it is a word I use quite often to describe what I do to find out a little bit about someone. And like, you know what? I have to give her a little bit here, right? There's nothing too unhealthy about stalking someone a little bit at the beginning, right? But I feel like we're pretty far in. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure how long they've been together at this point, to be quite honest. Like she starts questioning him about like following new girls when they're sitting down. And he just says, I just follow people back. It almost seems like this very quick, like question answer where he has an answer for everything. But I don't even mean that in a bad way because it seems like she asks him these types of questions a lot. So she's like, if girls try to flirt with you, what do you say? And he's like, I say no thanks. And then she's like, have you ever cheated? And he's like, no. And she's like, would you ever cheat? And he's like, no. But then he's like, okay, well, right back at you, honey. Okay. Because at the beginning of our relationship, you disappeared for a bit. And he's like, I want to know what happened, which is very reminiscent of Rick and Trisha, right? Because there was that 5-day period where he goes off and cheats on her like crazy because she's doesn't even ghost him, but just sort of gives him one word answers. So this sounds very familiar. And what's funny is Emma ended up doing what Rick was worried that Trisha was doing. Rick was worried that Trisha was with her ex. And that is exactly what Emma was doing because she told us that what she hasn't told Zied yet is that she had another Moroccan love and that she was engaged to him and that she met him in Morocco and that they called it off. So during this period of time when she disappeared, it was because she was trying to make it work with that other guy. But when she's talking to Zied about it here, she gets immediately defensive and she's like, I was going through a bad breakup. And he's like, wait, what? He's trying to like question this, and as he should, because she would do the exact same. She will not say anything further than, I was going through a breakup. I was going through a breakup. That is her only answer. And it's just kind of unfair because, he ends up saying at the end and telling the camera, it's clear she's hiding something. And, I can't be engaged to someone with secrets, which is fine and which is fair. But like, guys often do this thing where they accuse a woman of doing something that they didn't do because it's something that they would do. And that's sort of exactly what happened here because Emma, like you're so concerned about him cheating on you. You're so concerned about him adding all these girls. You did cheat on him. There was crossover. You have admitted that. You haven't admitted that to Ziad, but you have admitted that to us, right? So it's so interesting that she has like this insane attachment to loyalty when she wasn't even loyal to him in this exact relationship, right? So I like that he turned it around and he questioned her on it because he did notice that there was this period of time. And the fact that she got defensive, I think, isn't fair because, hello, isn't she the one who was like, I have to tell him about my previous engagement. I have to be honest with him. And then last week when he was like, oh, I don't need to know about your past. All I need to know about is like what's going on now and what's going on for the future. This isn't important to me. I don't need to know this. She's like, but I do not compute. Producers told me that I have to bring up a secret and now I don't know what to do. So it's just so confusing because, she was like all gung ho on bringing up this secret and it was so, so important. And she even said last week, there's no way that I feel that we can truly move forward unless I tell him about my past. Okay, well, when he questions you on your past, you claim the fuck up. So which is it, honey, right? Like it's really unfair. It really is. Okay, that's my rant on Zied and Emma. Okay, let's move on to Birkin and Laura. I love Laura. Oh, this series of scenes in this episode, I felt for her so strongly as somebody who has gone through weight struggles. So there's a lot that I relate to here. So sort of let's go through it and then we'll talk aftermath. So as we remember in the last episode, Laura had just landed in Turkey. Birkin was acting kind of weird. We weren't sure if he was attracted to her. And then when they get back to the apartment that they're staying in, he's like, I'm not tired. Why don't you go to bed and I'll come join you later? So she was not happy about that, about going to bed alone. And she internalized what it meant a lot. So she tells us in this episode, she decided to go back out to the living room to where Birkin was watching TV and said, like, I want to talk. And he explained that he wanted to give her some space, which is weird because it's like she just got there, right? Like, what space? I don't know. But she felt like it meant he wasn't attracted to her. And they admit in a joint confessional that they made out. Now, in the confessional, it is hard to tell how Birkin felt about that because I don't know, Laura's there, right? But he said good times. It is hard to tell his facial expressions regardless. We don't know him well enough yet. I don't know how you guys feel, but like there's certain people where it is kind of hard to tell. And I can't quite tell with this guy. Well, I feel like nobody can, right? Because if it was that clear to Laura, she would know as well. So she still feels a little bit unsure about the situation because Beer can put the brakes on them having sex. But I don't know, again, like I feel like he's trying to be respectful, possibly, and maybe he just wants to move slow. I'm just not sure about the attraction thing at this point. Everyone is saying it's obvious, but he says some things later that make me question. So, anyways, later that day, Laura brings Beer Can to a plastic surgeon for a consultation to remove her loose skin. So she's lost like a whole ton of weight. I think 140 pounds. She lost it in a really short period of time. So she has a lot of loose skin. And Birkin tells the camera that Laura thinks too much about her appearance and no one is perfect, so who cares? And it just shows that he does not understand. I don't know if it's his age. I don't know if it's being from Turkey. I don't know if it's being a man. I don't know what it is, or being someone who's never been, he's possibly just never had an issue with his weight, right? It's so not that simple. It's not about being perfect, first of all, okay? Like she's not perfect and she'll never be perfect. But we live in a society, and maybe he doesn't, but we live in a society where how you look really impacts how people treat you. It impacts who will date you, quite frankly. It impacts the kinds of jobs you get. It impacts a lot. And it's not fair to just say, like, who cares? Don't think about it. No one's perfect. It's important to her. And I think that as someone who kind of had that constant struggle with weight their whole life, which Laura does, and Laura is always going to, in a sense, because it's always going to be a mental thing. I think that if Bjorken is really going to be in her life, he needs to do a lot more to understand the psychology and mental aspect that comes along with losing a lot of weight or having eating disorders or just having weight issues, because it's really not that simple of like, no one is perfect, who cares? This is going to be the kind of thing she's going to bring up on the daily for like the rest of her life, and it's not going to work out if he kind of makes her feel like this is stupid, I don't want to talk about this. I'm just saying. So she brings him with her to this doctor because he's her partner and he's supposed to support her, but she immediately regrets it. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe that she brought him to this, because the doctor takes her to the back and takes all these pictures of her stomach, which is her problem area. Now, Laura says that she's still having like the loose skin, and having that after working her ass off, after losing so much weight, it's just been really hard on her, because that makes sense. I mean, you've lost the weight, but then when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're still seeing, like, I guess the remnants of that. You're not necessarily seeing the exact results that you want to see because you have all of this extra skin. And sometimes that skin actually weighs quite a bit itself. Now, the doctor then projects the pictures on the wall to talk about her treatment plan. And Laura said that she never anticipated that he would do that. But like, girl, have you never seen Botched or like any plastic surgery show? Like, they always do this. And like, oh, here's the thing. As someone who's always had an eating disorder and struggled with her body image, like I would never show my most vulnerable bits to someone in the daylight. So let alone a like blown up picture on a wall that's like zoomed in is like my worst fucking nightmare. Because even if I can muster up the strength to be naked with someone, and I always say that it's like the most vulnerable that you can be is when you're naked with someone, right? To have like, at least I do that in the dark. So let me clarify, because I talked about this a bit before, but like, yeah, I've always been super like very self-conscious, and I always will be. I don't think I've ever let someone see me fully, completely like in the light, daylight, naked. I've always wanted to be as much as possible in the dark so that I feel the most comfortable. Because I mean, that doesn't really stop them from feeling like how fat my body might be, but at least it covers up like my stretch marks and like bumpy stuff and like other things. It just makes me feel more comfortable. I would just never feel comfortable in the daylight. So think about having like the worst aspects of your body projected onto a wall, right? But again, that is what would happen when you go to a place like this. So to let a guy I like, see my worst bits like projected onto a wall in like the brightest of light is like a fucking nightmare. Like that is a fucking nightmare. I don't know that I'd ever be able to look at him again. And I'm not talking about her in particular. I'm talking about whatever my version of that would be for my body. If I had that projected on a wall, that's literally what nightmares are made of, isn't it not? Isn't that like almost like showing up naked in a meeting? It's almost like that. Now, Birkin looking at the photos was confusing because it's so hard to tell. You know he's uncomfortable, but he also knows that he cannot show any expression right now. Like he's at least smart enough for that. So Birkin tells the camera, like I was trying to like actually pick up his words. I watched this a couple of times. So here were his exact words. He says, "It kind of surprised me. It's just people's life, and it's not a problem for me." Again, don't know what that means in relationship to those photos, man, but I appreciate you trying. So Laura tells the camera that she's embarrassed that she went to this appointment with Birkin because she's not sure if he's attracted to her, and going to this appointment together made her more anxious of that than ever. So they're like outside of like the doctor's office. Laura gets super emotional with him outside and says that she feels scared and embarrassed about the surgery because there's going to be like this big surgery. It's going to be like a 6-week recovery, and it's a lot, right? It is. And he actually was very comforting in this moment. He says, "Look, there's nothing to be embarrassed by. Do the surgery. Enjoy the rest of your life. You are gorgeous. I will always be by your side." And I think she really needed to hear that. He did say it looking directly into her eyes. And I think he really knew because, like I said earlier, she's talking a lot about her body. And he's like, why does she do that? She doesn't need to do that. But that is going to be a part of her life. And I feel like despite being only 26 years old, he was very quick on the pickup to pick up on the fact that she needed that validation in terms of her looks. And he said it, he gave it to her. And I think that'll change their dynamic going forward because she's not being perfect either, sweetheart, right? She's having her moments as well where she's being a little clingy and looking at him weird. She shouldn't have brought him to this thing. So I think that now that she feels a little bit more settled and what's the word? Settled and I guess like validated, right? She can sort of like, relax and feel like, phew, he's attracted to me. We're on the same page. Let's go from here. And I feel like now that she's going to feel more relaxed about that, their relationship might be better. But oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I completely until this moment forgot about Michael. Can you believe that? Because I have been rooting for Michael this entire fucking time. And look at me here on episode 5, forgetting completely that Michael exists. Oh my God. Wow. Am I here for Birkin and Laura? Like, maybe I am. Maybe I am. I don't know. I thought that that was going to be our love story this whole time, and Birkin was just, a side character. But I've grown to kind of maybe not hate him. And I know that Michael will show up at some point, but I just think it's funny, just putting it out there, that I completely forgot about him. That being said, he didn't show up at all in this episode either, but I just completely forgot he existed, and I became really invested in Birkin and Laura. So who knows? Okay, let's move on to Javon and Anna Lynn. So they're our newest couple. We saw them come in last week. They've been together for 6 years, but married for 3, but have never met, right? So remember that they got married over the computer 3 years ago. So Javon is heading to the Philippines, and they're both worried about meeting each other just because they've been fighting a lot. But we're in the Philippines now. When we meet Anna Lynn, she's actually really smart. She went to university and she studied mass communications because she likes to talk a lot. She does have like a very bubbly, energetic type of personality. So this part was interesting. She decided to stop working full time because she and Javon are in opposite time zones. So she had to change her sleep schedule so that she could talk to him. And that made it difficult for her to keep any kind of work. So Javon sends her $400 to $500 a month. Okay, this clarifies a lot for us. So this sort of reminds me of Forrest and Sheena. And I am wondering if the reason that Forrest doesn't have a job is because he needs to be on Sheena's time zone or whatever, which is ridiculous and not a justifiable reason, because then that means this entire time you're not able to save money to try to bring that person over. So this is exactly ridiculous as well, because we know that Javon works in like a retirement home and that he does not make a lot of money. We also know that he's been trying to save for this trip for like 6 years. We also know that that's because he doesn't have a lot of money. So the fact that he's sending her $500 a month, that's probably like half of his entire month, honestly, when she could be working. So that's so insane. They could have met years ago if you think about it, right? Like, girl, get a job. This is insane. Talk to each other at other times. You'll figure it out. What about on weekends? Go on the different time zone on weekends. I know that's difficult, but like, you cannot stop working full time when this man does not make very much money. I'm not defending this guy because I do not like him, but that's crazy. So, Annalyn and her mom, they're like best friends. They live next to each other. Her mom has a small store. She shows her mom the shoes that she got to sort of give herself height for her trip with Javon. She tells her mom that she booked a resort at Mississippi Bay and she'll be traveling there tomorrow. And she's excited that they'll be in person for the first time and intimate for the first time. She says, I've waited so long for this, 6 whole years, which again is crazy. And her mom is like, yeah, your whole life has revolved around him, waiting on his calls. You couldn't do your work properly. You don't spend time with your friends anymore. And it's been really hard to watch your child like that. And she says that she wants to focus more on the positive stuff than her disagreements with Javon, like him talking to another woman that he used to have feelings for, because she's like, I really just kind of want this to work out. But she still doesn't understand, or he still doesn't understand why that felt like betrayal to her. But she says, outside of that, we have problems that are way worse than this. So I'm like, oh gosh, the fact that these two people have so many problems and they've never met is wild. I mean, they have been married for 6 years and a lot can change. But what Annalyn explains is like, Javon thinks that I've changed, but really I think that it's him. She said that after they got married, he started watching these podcasts about masculinity that say that men should find women that are soft and feminine and submissive. And so she feels like he's trying to change her to a person that she's not. Because we did hear him explain in the previous episode, she used to be a lot kinder and nicer. And she's like, no, I wasn't. Like, I was always like this. So I'm very curious what these podcasts are about masculinity. Like, this sounds very like incel-like, and I'm not sure what these are, but I'm very curious. I have to go listen to some of my friends' podcasts who also cover 90 Day, because I know some people love to do the deep dive on this stuff. I don't for 90 Day. I just don't really see the point. But like some people like to go down the Reddit holes and see what we might be talking about. If there was something that popped off the top of my head, I might think about it, or I might look into it. But there isn't like this hyper masculine podcast that comes to mind or comes to top of mind. Javon feels like if she doesn't agree with him, she should just be quiet, but she likes to question things because that's who she is. And I don't know if that's something that's part of his personality or that's something that he's learned from these podcasts, but it's going to affect their relationship because these are two very different ways of living, right? He doesn't want her to speak up on things. She wants to speak up, and that's going to tear them apart. She says her biggest fear is that Javon comes to the Philippines. They don't get along, but the problem is that they're married. They aren't just dating. So if they can't resolve their issues, she doesn't know what she's going to do. And that's very fair, right? I mean, we don't normally see people this far into something like this. Javon did explain, I think, in his first episode that I guess the ramifications of this for him are that he'll decide whether or not to go forward with the K1 process for her because he hasn't done that. But like they cannot continue on like this financially. They're never going to be able to afford the K1 visa if he continues to work at the retirement home and he's giving her $500 a month. Like absolutely not. But when they meet, they're actually so happy to see each other. There's instant chemistry, and as they should, it's a 6-year relationship. They're kissing all over each other, and these two are excited to bang. And they tell the camera the environment is right to get it in. So good for them. But Annalyn is nervous because it's been almost a decade since she's had sex. And I totally understand that. She's like, have the positions changed? And that was so cute. And I would so feel this way too. It has been literally the same period of time for me. My brain went right into the same mode as her, even though I'm not in the situation. So thank God. But like my brain went into the same sort of mode where I'm like, oh my God, have things changed? It would be so weird after such a long period of time. Would the person be able to tell that it's been this long, right? It's just so weird. But we do send them off to Bangtown and to all a good night. We move on to our last and final couple, Lisa and Daniel. Now, Daniel gets a hotel for them to stay in Nigeria. He is so excited to meet Lisa. Lisa has been on her way for a while, so their story isn't very long in this episode because she's traveling, but we can always count on Lisa to give us something hilarious. So we see her on the plane and she's all excited to meet Daniel. And she says, and I quote, "I can't wait for this to come to fruitation." She means fruition, but she's so fucking cute. I don't care. Lisa says that she promised her daughter Faith that she wouldn't marry Daniel without telling him the truth about her past, and she's scared to do that. She starts crying on the plane from nerves. Sorry, when I called her cute before, I mean in a different way than I mean from Laura. Laura is cute and I like root for the best. Like Lisa's cute, I mean in this weird, quirky, like Mary Cosby kind of way where I'm just like, she says like the quirkiest, cutest things. And the fact that she cries when she gets nervous, like we saw her crying in the drugstore where she was buying condoms. So now she's crying on the plane because she's nervous. I am just thankful she didn't pee because she did tell us in the last episode that when she gets nervous, she pees, and she was worried that there would be like piss running down her legs when she met him. And I just didn't want to have the visual. So I'm glad she didn't bring that up. We see her landing in Nigeria and trying to freshen up the best that she can in the bathroom. She's wiping her underarm. She's like, boob sweat. She's got these wet wipes. And then she says that she wants to wash her crotch area because she doesn't want that to stink there either. But I'm not sure if you're allowed to use wet wipes there. I could be wrong. I have absolutely no idea. I don't even know what kind of wet wipes she was using, to be quite honest. I have something absolutely crazy to say, and this is nothing against any of these people. This is actually just like a business idea that would never work. But we see all of these people coming off these plane rides, these long plane rides. They want to have like this grand entrance. To me, it feels like this happens frequently enough that should airports not invest in some shower stalls so people can like really, get dolled up? And it can maybe even be for like an extra fee. So it's not even like available to everyone necessarily, but like, yeah, I see that I'm asking too much. I see that I am. It's just, you get off like these 30-hour plane rides and it just sucks because you want to be able to take a shower before you see the person. And there's only so much you can do to freshen up in those tiny bathrooms. So I don't know. I feel bad for all of those people who have to do all of that work in those tiny little stalls to just be able to figure it out. I mean, I've been in those situations too. Not necessarily where I have to look perfect, but you've got your luggage in the stall with you and you're trying to figure it out and you're trying to change, and it's such a bitch, right? I just wish that there was a place you could go to really freshen up, is all I'm saying, like within the airport. So Lisa's worried about how old and tired she looks coming off of a long flight, like I said. I feel bad for her there because she doesn't know what's going to happen. I mean, I've been in this situation so many times with online dating where I'm like, are they going to be attracted to me? I have no idea. But to literally get on a plane ride that is this long, that is so scary because you have no idea if the person's going to be actually attracted to you once they see you. Like, what would you do? Would you turn around and go home? What if you can't get a plane ride back immediately, right? Like, that would be my biggest fucking nightmare. So I totally understand how she feels. She's like especially nervous about her appearance because she's just like, oh God. She said that when she talks to Daniel at home, she can control the lighting and her makeup, and she doesn't feel perfect right now. And appreciate the honesty, girl. Like, I totally appreciate that. This is like in the light, not as much in the light, obviously, as Laura's stomach at the doctor's office, but still, it's, you don't have your ring light, you don't have your makeup. It's different. But when they see each other, they basically eat each other's faces off. He seems attracted to her. She seems attracted to him. So I'm like, okay, like I'm still sort of questioning this guy. I'm very confused. Daniel says, maybe when I get to the room, I will chew you. Ew, David. And I know his name is Daniel, but you guys know what I mean. So he calls her an irresistible, beautiful angel, and he surprises her at the airport with traditional Nigerian dancers. And I think that's absolutely so cute. It reminds me also of Asuelu and Kalini, but when he did it, it was really embarrassing for her at the airport. That was also at the American airport, so it wasn't really traditional here. It was traditional over there, obviously. But Lisa was sort of like being fun and like one of like part of the party. And so she gets in, she starts dancing with them. She has such a good time. So you have to admit that she's like super positive. And then the episode ends with Daniel getting down on one knee and asking Lisa to marry him. and she covers her mouth, and that ends there. Now, she better not say yes, because she made a promise to her daughter, and she also has to tell him about all of her burning secrets that production has made her keep for God knows how long. Okay, it's very, very important. And who knows how he's going to feel about all those things. But it is wild that he just looks at her like he really does love her. So I'm just very curious to see how this one goes down. This looks like our wildest couple in some years, and that's why I'm just so jazzed about it. Okay, guys, that is the end of the episode. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you want to follow me online, you can do that on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Facebook. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, join us on the Patreon. It's patreon.com/the Bravo Investigator Podcast. And I love you, BBs. I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator Podcast. For more content, head over to patreon.com/the Bravo Investigator Podcast. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads @the Bravo Investigator. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.